do it from my phone, so I apologize. So hopefully I'm very clear for you all. Today we're going to talk about reducing holiday stress with kids. This is something that I like to go over. It's going to be a brief presentation, but it's something that I feel is really important for families right now, especially in the time of COVID, right? And you can definitely see as we go through how some of these stressors can be increased and how some of these irritabilities can be increased right now, especially given some of the limitations that are being put out there even right now. So this is, I think, a helpful slide for us to remember if you're a parent, but also to provide for your parents. So go ahead and advance the slide. These are some of the holiday pressures that we see, right? So a lot of families start to deal with some of these pressures. Many of the times stores become overcrowded. They're trying to find right now, especially with COVID, they're trying to find different ways and techniques to keep as many people out of the stores. But I don't know if you guys have noticed, but I've definitely noticed an increase in shoppers. So stores can be crowded. That can be really scary right now. So that's definitely a holiday pressure. The thoughts and feelings of big family gatherings, families coming together. Sometimes there are conflicts and stressors just within different family dynamics. And so thinking about the holidays and how that's going to happen. I know a lot of the families that I work with, you know, especially foster parents who have foster kids who sometimes have never really experienced holidays. They start to prepare for these big holidays, and a lot of the times that's a little overwhelming for kids who've not experienced that. So a lot of behaviors can spike at that time. So that can be a pressure, as well as some families aren't sure who they're going to visit or if they're going to visit or how many people that they want to be there, or, you know, right now, especially with COVID, the fear of infecting others in, you know, vulnerable populations. And so that's definitely a holiday pressure. Another tip that I kind of give to families around the holidays is to avoid social media, or sometimes go off of social media for a while, take a break from social media. We've made that a family goal at times because that's another holiday pressure. Sometimes when I have some moms with anxiety, they see all of these pictures being posted of families doing fun arts and crafts and activities, and they feel this pressure to keep up with it. So keeping up with the Joneses, right? Needing to do that with their kids, and when they will do that, and if they have time to do that. And right now they're just feeling overwhelmed, so they don't know that they will have fun even doing that. And so that can become a really big holiday pressure. And then also on social media, you see all of those tree pictures with tons of millions of presents underneath. And I mean, for some families, that's just not realistic. And we talk about, you know, getting your needs met versus wants. And is that really something that your kids want? Will they really remember those pieces? And so we really explore that. That's a huge holiday pressure. And that elf, right? That elf is a huge holiday pressure. We don't, thank goodness, we don't have the elf anymore. My kids are older. But I used to wake up in the middle of the night and just like panic, like, oh my gosh, I forgot to move the elf. But I have to run and move the elf, right? That's holiday stress and pressure that's interrupting my sleep. So that can be a huge stressor. I saw a couple cute ideas with COVID about putting the elf in a mason jar and saying that he has to quarantine every 14 days every time he leaves, right? So then that way you're only moving him a couple times and not every day. Go ahead and advance the slide. So we start with acknowledging those feelings, acknowledging those pressures. One of the first techniques that I teach families is to check in with themselves. This is a big piece that we use across behavior management altogether, but especially around the holidays, right? Check in with yourself, see what's going on with you. If it comes down to those arts and crafts, right? I have a couple families that are real big on the arts and crafts, but we talk about the need to check in with themselves first. Where are they at? And is today a good day to do that? Because the purpose of them wanting to do it is so that they enjoy that time with their kids. And if how you're feeling today is going to take away from that, or you're pressured for time, or you have other pressures, then it's not the day to do that. And so we really talk about checking in with self and just being very mindful of how you're feeling and how your stress is today. What level is it on? Because we know that that impacts kids, right? And checking in with kids because sometimes they're off, sometimes their temperaments are off. Sometimes days where you're great, the kids aren't. They're not having a great day. And so, really checking in with them too and making sure that it's a mutual time. And so, really identifying that within each other and finding those mutual times. It doesn't always happen that way. And a lot of the times it can come out of your schedule, right? It's you schedule a day and a time to do these fun activities and they're not in the right place. And then what happens is it ends up being a big blow up in conflict. When reality is you didn't have to push for it then. We can put it off. There's always tomorrow. And so really talking about doing that. I've worked with families on, sometimes they don't get to some of those things until maybe the day after Christmas or a couple days after Christmas, and that's okay. Because the reality is the kids still have off in those times and no one says you have to do it right before. And so really kind of talking about that and exploring that. We talk about reaching out to family. And so in the times of COVID, we talk about ways that you can do that. What I've been talking with a couple of my families about, I know a couple of my families are really starting to have some anxiety and feeling pressures around traveling and choosing not to travel this holiday season and how to really still make that connection with their kids. And so I had one family that actually took a lot of pictures around each house and they sent them back and forth between their grandparents and wanted to tell them like what this area was or where they decorated in a certain area, or wanted their grandparents to take a picture of their living room before they decorated and then they want to send them one after they decorate because they haven't decorated yet. And so talking about creative ways of how to manage that and reach out to families right now is important. Sitting down and doing letters to families, writing letters. I have a couple families that do their Christmas, they do a year in review and they do like what all their family did in the past year. And I think that's amazing. And to sit down together and do that. I mean, not all kids are going to be able to sit down and point out some of those pieces, but they can contribute to that. And that's important for them. And they feel that self-gratification when they're able to see that come together within that letter. And so we talk about ways to reach out that way and also to not isolate. So a lot of the times when parents start to feel some of these pressures, what they do is they withdraw. And what we talk about is not withdrawing, right? So reaching out and kind of pushing yourself because that extra support really is helpful if it's a healthy support for them. I go back to the HALT method, right? So this comes from the HALT method comes from the whole brain child, Dan Siegel's, the trauma, but it really comes into really acknowledging all emotions and teaching parents just to remember the HALT, right? And so remember that your kids are going to have a difficult time if they're hungry, angry, lonely, or tired. And so if you know that you're going out at a certain time that maybe they haven't ate or maybe they're just having an angry day or they haven't got their nap yet, it's not a good time to go out, right? We talk a lot about around this time, I talk with a lot of anxious families around their Christmas pictures. So Christmas pictures are a big thing for a lot of families. And so we talk about the HALT around that. And so planning that around those Christmas pictures and possibly having a backup time and date for Christmas pictures so that if their kids are experiencing this, they don't feel that extra pressure. Because what happens is if parents are feeling that extra pressure because kids aren't able to regulate or manage their emotions, then it's just going to become a big cycle and it's just going to be an angry day for everybody. I'm sure everybody who is a parent has experienced that. Okay, advanced slide. I talk to parents about being realistic. The reality is that they can't expect perfection. A lot of the times when we talk about planning for the holidays or we've been working on behaviors and parents are like, okay, great, we're going to do this, 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 and this. I talk about not expecting perfection, right? Because the holidays are overstimulating. If you even just look everywhere. There's Christmas decorations and different activities happening, and how they're happening, and all of these virtual capabilities. And so it can be overwhelming and overstimulating for kids, and we know that kids can dysregulate in that time frame. And so we talk about not expecting perfection, especially if kids are traveling constantly. And we talk about different homes they have to travel to, and how they travel all day sometimes, or back to back 2 days. And they really tell their kids, you got to be on your best behavior. You got to be. The reality is they're not going to be, right? High stimulation like that, multiple transitions. There's a big chance that you're going to have some behaviors. So not expecting your kids to be perfect at other people's homes. And what I tell parents all the time is, engage with them. Take that time to engage with them, 10 minutes when you first get to somebody else's home, and then go ahead and socialize. And that way you kind of calm them down and help them transition between homes. Do what you can. Don't push everything in. I talk with parents all the time about, being realistic with those goals of what they can and can't do, not spending $70 to go see Christmas lights when they can drive around all the time. Because that's just as fun. I wish I would have wrote down this study that I heard. I heard this study, and I think I talked about it last year when I did this presentation. But there was a study that was done, and they interviewed like 21 I think it was like 21 to 25-year-olds, and they interviewed a sample size of like 50 of them. And they identified what their favorite holiday memories were. And none of them included going to the symphony, or driving to this huge display of Christmas lights, or going to see Santa Claus. It was baking gingerbread cookies, the smell that filled the house. It was getting in the car in their pajamas and driving around to see Christmas lights. It was sled riding on their Christmas break. It was wrapping Christmas gifts with their parents. And so it had nothing to do with these expensive ideas that parents feel like they have to do. And so this is where I talk with parents about not comparing. Don't compare, right? Don't try to keep up with the Joneses, and maybe, stay away from some social media so that you don't feel that obligation to do that. The other thing we talk about is saying no to some of these expensive events, and to packed planning, needing to do things in so many things. And the reality is when we have that packed planning, the parents are going to get exhausted, the kids are going to get exhausted, and that can be just a recipe for disaster. So really working on saying no. And this is a big piece that I work with families on. Okay, advanced slide. Thank you. I talk with parents about sticking to the budget. And so sometimes, especially because it's early enough now, right? You can talk about sticking to the budget. Or even around Halloween, I talk with parents about, especially families that I know have a difficult time with this. Let's talk about how you can stick to that budget. Homemade gifts are great. People love receiving homemade gifts from the kids. And so if you have that crafty ability and want to do those crafts, combine that and do those homemade gifts. Doing gift exchanges. I have one parent that really stresses about getting everyone in her family something every year. And we talked about suggesting to her family doing a gift exchange this year, because they're very limited on their funds this year due to, the economy and COVID and her husband not working. So we talked about doing a possible gift exchange with the family. And so the family was really receptive to that, because many of them were in the same position, and this can be really helpful. So then you're only buying one gift versus 15 gifts. The other thing we talk about sticking to is healthy habits. And I know that this can be really difficult around the holidays, but it's really important for kids to stick to that healthy habit, and for you too as a parent, because it makes you feel better. But there are a lot of other options, and we know, especially kids who have dysregulation issues, we know that sugar is a stimulation. It's a high stimulation, and there's tons of it around the holidays. And so really trying to stick to some of those healthy habits. Preparing for situations. So preparing in a healthy way for situations with some of that meal prep ahead of time. Sticking to those routines. So routines all together. I know it's hard at the holiday season to stick to routines when you're traveling and visiting, but around those days, sticking to your routine. So consistently having that, sticking to your routine, making kids aware of what's going to happen in advance, sometimes having a holiday schedule, a calendar with visual aids for kids. I know my kids with some intellectual disabilities love the visual aids. They love making the stickers for the visual aids. And that helps them with that predictability. So it reduces any underlying anxiety that might be occurring. Okay, next slide. And again, nothing compares to some of that one-on-one time. And so as a parent, and I always come back to with parents checking in with themselves, right? Check in with yourself and reassure yourself and do what you need to get yourself back in that place where you just have that time to spend and to bake, wrap presents together, sending Christmas cards, writing them out together. Singing is amazing. There's a lot of research and a lot of studies that have identified one that Christmas music brings nostalgia, but the other piece is that singing does too. And so there's a rhythm within the brain that creates this synaptic wiring that helps with regulation. And so singing is super beneficial. And I just feel like with the combination of holiday music and singing together, I mean, that's just sounds good. Sounds like it would be relaxing. And playing. I talk with parents all the time because part of our behavior management is usually that one-on-one time playing, utilizing specific techniques to help reduce some of that anxiety, things that parents have learned, but they seem to get away from it around the holidays. And so we talk about play, and more play, right? Take the time to play. Put some of those activities to the side. Just relax with one another and play. Okay, next slide. And making kids helpers in these activities. Kids love to be helpers. And I mean, you might not get much baking done when they're helping, but maybe you make a side baking day where they can help. I know I always had a difficult time with my kids baking because I had a recipe and wanted to get it done, but they love helping, right? And kids love being helpers. Gift wrapping, it doesn't have to be perfect. My daughter loves helping wrap gifts. She's not that great, but she does it and she loves it. And so it works out just fine. It doesn't have to be perfect. Remember, not expecting perfection. Cooking together is very helpful. Kids love to help with that. And thinking about it and prepping it ahead of time so that they can help on little pieces can be really beneficial. Decorating. I talk with moms a lot. A lot of moms talk about having the what is it? The OCO, obsessive compulsive ornament decorating, or whatever they say they have, but with the ornaments being in a certain way. And so we talk about ways that you can let the kids decorate the tree. And if there's a certain way your tree has to be, maybe you let them have their own tree and decorate it however they want to. Picking holiday movies. So having kids help pick holiday movies. And I had one mom who was, and this was a great idea, and she came up with it. I thought it was amazing. She saw it on Pinterest or something, but while she was gift wrapping, she really could not let her kids help her wrap gifts because she needed it to be perfect. She needed it to be to feel calm. And so we talked about other alternatives. And some of the alternatives was she had the kids wrap movies. So then they wrapped all their Christmas movies. And then when they decided to watch Christmas movies, they picked one. And so they never knew what they were picking, and they would unwrap it and then they would watch a Christmas movie. And I thought that was a fabulous idea because they were still helpers in both. They were helpers in picking the movie and they were helpers in wrapping the gifts. So that was great. Okay, next slide. And time to yourself. So with parents, I talk about mentally unplugging that Christmas tree, right? Like just take some time to yourself. This has been really big, especially right now in the time of COVID, because a lot of parents are feeling the stress of working, financial burdens, and being teachers as well. And so there's a lot of underlying stress that's there. It's kind of hard to get away, and it's kind of hard to take time for themselves. So I've been working really hard with almost all of my families on doing this and taking time for yourselves and setting these small goals. And for some families, it is just eating right, right? Or drinking so many cups of water a day. Some we've talked about taking a walk around the block or locking yourself in the bathroom for 10 minutes. Everyone's safe and fine. It's okay. Lock yourself in the bathroom, put some earbuds in, and just ignore the noise for 10 minutes. Some of my moms I've been working with have chose. I have one mom that she's a stay-at-home mom, and she loves jewelry, and she stopped wearing jewelry. And one of her goals was, I want to wear my jewelry again, because even though I'm not going anywhere, that was something I took pride in. And so she started wearing jewelry, even if she had pajamas on. And it made a significant difference for her. Another mom, makeup. It was makeup, right? She stopped putting on makeup because she wasn't going anywhere. And so we talked about putting on makeup, and we made that a goal. But these were things for themselves. So they took this time for themselves. And if you think about it, putting on your makeup, that's prep time. That takes 10 to 15 minutes, and it's by yourself. And so sitting there doing those things, picking out their jewelry, right? That's time to themselves. So these little goals made them feel important, but it also gave them that space for themselves. And so it's really important to take that time. I really promote this like across the board. I think that's all I had, right? What's the next slide? Yeah. So just working with families on reducing stress over the holidays, really about just taking that pressure off of them so that they can be present for their kids during that time of the year.
Thank you so much, Amanda. That was awesome. And I'll tell you, I'm not a parent yet, but that was super helpful even for me. So thank you very much. I'm definitely going to take those tips and carry them with me throughout the holiday season. So thank you. Did anyone have any questions or comments, maybe stories that you'd like to share with the group as well? And feel free to unmute anytime.
Hi, this is Carmen. You reminded me of a technique that my a counseling professor taught us years ago. I was doing an internship at the student assistance program at WVU, actually, and we're working with people that had really traumatic pasts and for whom like holidays, going to family events was just really stressful. And so what she encouraged them to do, because they felt like, okay, I do feel like I need to take my kids to this family gathering on Thanksgiving. But what she said is, also make sure you make your own holiday and make it whatever you want. So maybe you do go to that Thanksgiving dinner with your family on Thursday, but make sure you have your real Thanksgiving, whatever that means to you. And if that means going to a movie and having time to yourself, and that's the Thanksgiving you want, make sure you schedule that sometime so you feel like you did enjoy that, the real Thanksgiving for yourself. So I always remember that. I always like that.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And, you know, you're right. A lot of the families we work with have these trauma histories where, you know, facing a lot of family can be overwhelming just thinking about it. And so we talk about that, and we talk about setting those boundaries. We talk about making that time for yourself, right? And creating your own traditions. So a lot of the times families have a hard time letting go of some traditions. And I think especially now with COVID, that's going to be an underlying stress within itself, is having to let go of some traditions, but creating new ones. And so providing that hope by helping them explore to create new family traditions and what that looks like for you and your family. And you're absolutely right. If it's the next day or however they celebrate it, celebrating it to themselves is definitely beneficial. And that's why we talk about playing too. A lot of families that anticipate anxiety going into, you know, those situations, I talk about them taking that time with your kids. just sit down with your kids and acclimate them to the situation. You and your kid play with them. If they open up something, sit there and talk to them about it and play with them, because that's familiarity and they feel comfortable in those situations. You can almost let go of everyone around you when you do that. My husband made fun of me one time because we went to a friend's house for a gathering and I was uncomfortable. And he's like, I can always find you with the kids, because there's so much more fun, right? It can make you forget about all the other stuff if there's something that's making you feel uncomfortable. And so we talk about playing when you get in those situations too. Good point.
It's funny you say that, Amanda, because you can always find me with the kids too at any type of gathering. It might be because I'm short, so they think I'm one of them or something, but thank you. Any other comments or thoughts from anyone? Amanda, I wanted to ask you, have you had, I know you touched upon this season with COVID and everything, have you had discussions with parents about maybe the guilt that they have, whether it's guilt from going to a family gathering or guilt of not going because of COVID?
Yeah, I think that's a lot of our processing right now. And there's no right answer, right? And that's sometimes families come to me and they're like, I put this out there because I needed you to tell me. It's not my job. I've never given you answers to anything. So it's my job to facilitate through that. And so we've explored some of those feelings of guilt of going, some of those feelings of guilt of not going, how to handle it. We've had some families talk about and start to prepare, well, maybe we'll go, but we'll bring our own food to make our own food, and so that we're not sharing food or we're not exposing anybody. And so, yeah, I've had a lot of families who've really just started to explore some of those different feelings and those different emotions. And again, just kind of normalizing the situation, well, normalizing as much as I can that this is completely abnormal. This is, there's no right answer. Nobody really knows at this time. This is new for everybody. And so what you're comfortable with and the decision you make is for you and your family.
Thank you. Did anyone else have anything they wanted to share with the group? All right. Well, if there are any other resources or stories or comments you'd like to share, feel free to shoot me an email as always, and I can share it with the group as well. But I guess I'll go into the announcements for next time. So our next session will be on December 2nd, and it'll be from 12 to 1 p.m. And Dr. Lillard will be providing the didactic for us on that date. And I guess that's everything else. I hope you all have Thanksgiving, stay safe, and keep those tips in mind that Amanda taught us today.
Hey, Mithra, could I ask that you, Colleen, and Amanda stay on just real briefly as we wrap up?
Absolutely. All right. Well, thank you all so much. We'll see you guys next time.
Thank you. Bye.
Hey, I wanted to ask you guys a couple things. I think I was out the week that you sent the email for next year's schedule, and I think the dates are fine, but I don't. I feel like I need to infuse myself with better topics because those again I know that kind of make them up, but I wanted maybe a little feedback from other people about things to maybe do for my topics. And then I also wanted to check in. I'm really glad to see they've been the vast majority of people the last couple of months, and we seem to have lost a lot of the other folks that used to join. And I guess I want to make sure it's not because we joined the team and are doing something that they're not interested in. So, I just wanted to kind of maybe use a little bit of time with us to give me feedback on topics and ideas and just see if maybe we were getting feedback about what other people needed
Yeah,
about that a little bit, because I've been like blasting through on my child topics, but I'm feeling like they're gonna get old real fast, I guess. So.
well, first and foremost, I've been getting positive feedback. Everyone loves this group, and I love this group so much. You guys are all so great. So definitely don't think it's anything with, all of you guys or anything. I can definitely reach out to the group again as far as different topic requests that they have. I know I did reach out a couple times within the past like fall season, and we did get some feedback. So I can send that over with potential topic ideas, and you could always work off of that and kind of tweak it to maybe something that you would want to discuss more about. But I can certainly email that to you all if you'd like.
Yeah.
That'd be helpful.
Yeah. So one of the things that Mithra and I were talking about when she sent that out was, or some of the topics that we received back were, some wanted to know more about the ACEs, how trauma can impact different medications. So that may be a topic
that I know
Lauren,
nothing about.
Might...
Although I guess I could talk about like pharmacology of PTSD or something like that, but
yeah, I think that would be perfect.
Okay.
But they also talked about, that's why I'm going to be doing one on discussing and managing sexualized behaviors, because they want to know how to kind of deal with that. And then there was one more, but I can't remember what the other one was. But I wanted to ask, what happened to Kanawha County? Because they usually had the cases, like the case presentations. Like they fed those to us.
Yeah, so I will say, I know with some of our other project areas, it hit that really put a wrench in things for a lot of clinics, and so they kind of had to manage their time differently, and it was tougher for them to submit cases and everything. So I can reach out to some, different participant groups that maybe in the past would attend more. I can reach out to them individually and maybe ask and see what are some barriers that maybe they're facing, whether it's time or time of the session or time to input a case and everything. So I can reach out to specific participants who have come in the past and kind of gauge what they're feeling and what they're going through. But I know with COVID, that kind of put a wrench in things for a lot of different clinics. So yeah, that's probably when we saw a lot of the change in participants and everything. So
I wonder if like the first of the month session has different people. Is that usually when that the Lincoln count, is it Lincoln
Memorial?
Lincoln Memorial, is that when that whole group comes, is on the first session of the month?
Yeah, I've noticed I think they try to come to the ones that they can, and I noticed too sometimes usually the Lincoln Memorial University folks are able to attend the first session of the month more, but the CED group I noticed have been really attending both a lot, which is great. But
well, and that was partly because I was doing their topics for them and realizing I was doing the same thing here, and so I invited them. But I hope it didn't like exclude the others, because I just know there's been a lot of changes. But
yeah,
I thought I would ask and see if we had updates.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely agree.
I see that Sharp Hospital, the one week, like 3 of them came, and I reached out and asked them kind of what the change was or why, and they said they had been told to start coming to these. So that to me could also shift the topics. I mean, they're going to want a very different set of topics that nobody else would really want in my mind, but maybe not. So maybe reaching out to see what they might need. I was thinking if the Lincoln people are coming on the kind of the first of the month, then maybe we need to think about topics. Maybe we need to look at scheduling the topics in that way. So maybe it's more more child focused in one. I don't know what the Lincoln people are really looking for though either.
Yeah, I don't even know who the Lincoln people are. That was a group but are they primary care or pediatricians or?
A lot of
they were physical or PAs maybe?
Yeah, a lot of them were PAs or in PA school. So I know it was through Lincoln Memorial University, and with COVID, they're kind of doing remote working. So some of them are in California, some are in Texas, but I can reach out to them too and see maybe if they can come to at least one of the sessions out of the 2 in the month, and see what topics they'd like to hear as well.
Okay, thanks for indulging me.
Yeah,
we can like invite other people, right?
Yep, absolutely. There's no
Okay.
limit. You can just invite as many people. We do ask that they fill out, we have like a participation agreement just for us to keep track of different places that join in on the sessions. It's not like a binding contract or anything, but if they're from outside of the WVU system, or they've, like the Lincoln Memorial folks, when they initially joined, I had them fill out one of the participation agreements, and you only need one person to fill it out for everyone to be able to join. But we don't have a cap or a limit for the number of participants per session, so they can join anytime that they can. So,
And does the CED know that they can, I guess we say it every time, but that they could bring case examples?
I don't think any of them have.
Well, yeah, I was like noticing today, I don't think like the people that I was like, because I've been talking and then I don't pay attention to who's here, but I haven't, the last few times, I don't think the people that have been on it have been any of the people that were ever presenting cases before. It just seemed to be like a whole shift.
Yeah.
Like the faces of the people I remember, I think they were like mostly Cabin Creek?
Cabin Creek, yeah, and Kanawha
Like I
County,
haven't
yeah.
seen some of those folks forever, and like so it may be like people don't like, it just seems the format shifted to more like a didactic CE, and like we kind of got away from the cases, and maybe that's because we have all these new people that don't know the model or whatnot. I don't know. I like the cases. I think the cases are
I do too, yeah.
really like, I almost like, instead of sometimes like picking a didactic, I could pick a case and present that. It could be more meaningful than, I think it's better if it's their cases, but I think sometimes like the case discussions was like much more engaging, and it's hard like just hearing yourself talk for a didactic for 30 minutes. So I thought like it might be worth like kind of maybe revisiting, or maybe next time like even just advertising the idea that we really do like case discussions, and we're gonna like send that out again or whatnot, because the only case I think we've gotten in the last 6 months was like Richie Cadenas' like one of the medical students. It just seems like it's been a really long time, and again, I know there's lots of shifting parts, but I gotta think like primary care is getting slammed with psychiatric issues right now, that we're missing like good case discussions about. So.
Yeah, because they're not talking about having COVID causing psychiatric issues within the first like 90 days of diagnosis. So yeah, you would think that they're seeing some of it.
Yeah, I can also include in the recap email, just encouraging people to submit cases or questions even. I always encourage them to use the online case form just to submit a question. It doesn't necessarily have to be like the labs and HPI and everything. I think sometimes maybe it could look daunting at first glance with all the different boxes you have to fill out, but certainly you don't have to fill out all the boxes. It could just be like the very last box that has like, you can add comments. And so I always encourage participants, and even the other project areas as well, that it doesn't have to be a full-on case. It can just, bring questions to the sessions and everything. So I can definitely reiterate that and send out another email to all the participants, and maybe those specific ones that we discussed, to see what topics they'd like to hear, and if they have cases that they'd like to bring and share with the group.
Maybe just touch base and like personalize it with them, that we're thinking of them, and they're okay.
Exactly.
I realized how long it's been since.
I don't think I've ever seen the Cabin Creek people since I started in June.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there was a core group in June, July that were coming. Okay, I can't forget her name. I'm forgetting her name. I think she worked in the schools, and she was working from home for a while, and she was here every week with discussion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She was a really good participant.
Yeah. Were there any other things? I know, Dr. Swagger, you were saying with the tentative schedule for the new year, some of those dates worked well. But if something comes up, we can always rearrange the schedule as well. We were hoping to have some guest speakers come on. So I was talking to Jay, who's my supervisor, about different, potential guest speakers, because I know our hub group here is smaller for this project. So it would be so much for just the three of you to provide didactics. So I'm definitely going to try to do some research, but if you guys know anyone who'd be interested in doing a guest lecture for one of the sessions, that would be great too.
Yeah, and
I do want to get the psychology interns to do them, and then I can reach out to the neuropsychology fellows. It might be good for them.
Yeah.
Teaching.
The elements that are useful for doing.
All right, well, happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you so much, Amanda.
Restless.
Thank you. Bye.